I would like to introduce to you the executive director and co-founder of This Is My Brave, Jennifer Marshall.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Jennifer Marshall, and I live with type 1 bipolar disorder. My journey with mental illness is not unlike the way most of us struggle with it. I hid my pain and feared I would never get better. Thankfully, that horrible chapter of my life didn't last forever. And when I began on that recovery path, I was desperate to find stories from individuals who had found a way to live successful, fulfilling lives despite this lifelong condition that has no cure. This Is My Brave's mission is to get to the place where one day we live in a world where we don't have to call it brave for talking openly about mental illness. We will simply call it talking.
When we go to do a show in a city, we put out these flyers. We're looking for people to tell their stories about mental health and overcoming addiction, and we're asking them to prepare a piece that tells their story through creative expression.
You deserve to be okay.
They're writing an original song or an original poem, or they're writing out their essay that really takes you through the ups and downs of what they've gone through.
My eating disorders and my related struggles, including depression and anxiety, cannot be cured with surgery or medication. They are not something that I can have one day and be rid of the next.
The final product is them on stage in front of a live audience of a couple hundred people.
I would be thrilled to have my work shown to anybody, I don't care who it is, to help get rid of the stigma, there's no need for stigma. Everybody has the light and the dark in their lives.
Do you often tell your story?
No, this is very new for me. Very new for me. In fact, a lot of the things I'll be telling, I haven't told anybody.
It's going to be the first time that I'm actually reading a poem to other people other than my therapist.
It's like super common to be struggling with mental illness, and like you shouldn't have to feel ashamed, and you should be able to speak up and talk about it like you can talk about other illnesses.
We hear stories about depression, about anxiety, about bipolar disorder, about PTSD, and people are coming forward to get folks to understand. It's a very tough thing to go through this audition process.
It absolutely is, because at the end of the day, we want it to be a show that people enjoy and are captured by. And so if, two people are telling the same kind of story, but one is more engaging and has a nicer sort of flow to it.
I think with the number of auditions you have this weekend, we're going to find the perfect mix of people.
And you're Hannah.
Yes.
All right.
Hannah.
Well,
Okay, awesome.
you know that we Googled you last year during auditions. I'm not sure how I figured out that you were someone that was Googleable, but when you canceled last year, there was a collective. Oh,
really?
Oh, yes.
My first hospitalization was the result of an overdose. It was my first and only suicide attempt, and I was in complete denial. I unfortunately experienced a sexual abuse trauma. Trauma after trauma after trauma, pretty much from the ages of 7 through 20. When I got to a point where I said, enough. The music is definitely something that I have always come back to. I have always wanted to be a musician. When I was going through my bipolar period as a teenager, it was what kept me alive. I will just sing and I will play, and whatever comes out, and it is one of the most therapeutic things that I do for myself.
okay telling myself I will be fine. I stand up, try to smile, but everything hurts. I'm getting lost in memories where demons lurk. They scream at me that nothing in my life will work. So when will I be free?
So I was actually supposed to audition last year, and I ended up canceling at the last minute because I wasn't in a space to be sharing my story. So it was really, really awesome this time around to feel like I've made that progress.
Can't stop living, won't stop.
Over the past 12 years, I've been hospitalized 5 times for manic episodes. The first time came out of nowhere after barely sleeping for a week. The second time happened 2 weeks later when I was admitted to the psychiatric ward on Christmas Day. During the years I was having my children, twice I was handcuffed and hospitalized by police officers, taken to the hospital in a police car. I found a community of people who were blogging about their mental health conditions in such a way that I was inspired to share mine. The only problem was that no one in my circle of friends or family was talking about it.
My family, like my mom, she at first was in denial, like I think more so than me, coming to grips with my illness. And she used to call it a nervous breakdown.
She was Wonder Kid, missing her two front teeth. When Jen first got sick, we didn't know what the future would hold.
We got her in the car. She was sitting next to me, and we're driving, seatbelt on, and I had my hand right here. I wasn't sure whether she was going to open the door and try to get out or do something. Seeing it firsthand really scared me.
We were afraid that she'd be labeled. We were afraid that she wouldn't be able to get a good job again. We felt that it was a good idea for her not to share the information. She didn't for a while, and she felt very, very isolated. I think that that stigmatized her even more.
So I started blogging when my kids were 3 and 1. Too young to understand yet what I was doing, but as they got a little older and I continued writing, I started to talk to them about it because I want to raise a generation that is completely different than previous. I want them to be able to talk about bipolar disorder and any kind of mental illness the same as they talk about physical illness.
Vivi, is it raining by you guys?
No.
Oh, why are you still in your jammies?
Even if you yourself don't live with a mental health issue, you can't ignore the statistics that you know someone, whether you realize it or not, but you know someone who's going through this, whether it's a family member or a friend.
All right, I love you.
I love you too, Mommy.
When we listen to these stories, we can learn better how to support loved ones going through it.
I've probably written more poems in my time here on this planet than I can remember, but what I do remember of my poems is that they've gotten me through. Through diagnosis to treatment to death in the family, with headphones on, with cigarette-stained fingertips, writing poems, anxious thoughts accompanied me every red line train stop. My mind would finally stop pacing around the train station, but if those batteries died, those thoughts got so much louder, and it happened many times. Anyway, back to this poem. I've been writing forever, but most of it is I write when I'm sad. It's been many times I've written what I thought were suicide notes and turned into poems, you know? It's not like I would ever do that, you know what I mean? But like, I've had a real difficult time. First I was diagnosed ADHD, and then I was diagnosed bipolar, and I didn't know what that was, so I had to research it and found out that it was, you know, all these great people had it and stuff, so that's how I kind of looked through it. Started performing poetry at speakouts and became a beast, a regular Walt Whitman, who, by the way, was a manic depressive and one of the best poets who's ever written. I've written so many poems and now I teach it like a prescription. And yeah, I have anxiety, I'm smoke-free, drug-free, and hoping to have children. I read Bukowski for therapy and Chuck Palahniuk for a laugh, and I'm in love with Leonard Cohen, Sylvia Plath, and Emily Dickinson. And one of them, if not all of them, had some form of mental illness. And all of them, yes, all of them, yeah, all of them were brilliant. I was on a medication that didn't work, and I had a total cognitive breakdown. recovery it's non-linear. It's been a slow process. My wife asked me why I did it, why I wanted to do This Is My Brave, and I said that I feel like I lose a lot, and this time I wanted to win, you know what I mean?
OCD is fine with me. Bipolar, Hendrix had it. And Van Gogh was depressed, and Monet painted water lilies. I saw them, I could smell the paint, I was just at it. And Princess Leia had mania, and she was an author and a friggin' princess. And Lincoln was our best president, and he did it living with depression. And Beethoven was deaf and wrote the dopest music, so what makes you think you can't do it? And I'll write another poem tomorrow with a cup of coffee. And another one when I'm anxious. And another one again at lunch, and another one at breakfast. Because I'm a poet with schizoaffective. But now I stop this poem suddenly, take a breath, and exit.
Oh, you are brilliant. You are so brilliant. I loved it. Amazing. I loved it. I loved every second of it. When one person decides to be brave, they give others the permission to do the same, and I like to call it brave multiplying brave. Those struggling silently find hope in knowing that if someone up there could get through it, maybe I can get through it too.
People around this country, and for that matter around the world, are reacting tonight to the terrible news of the death of Robin Williams. The 63-year-old actor and comedian died of an apparent suicide.
Fashion designer Kate Spade was found dead inside her New York City apartment. Her death is being investigated as an apparent suicide.
Chef Anthony Bourdain taking his life, found dead in his hotel room in France at 6.
When the media covers a celebrity suicide, the thing that's important to remember, which was actually said by one of our cast members in our Philadelphia show this year, which was the week of the loss of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, he said, when a celebrity dies by suicide, the conversation is elevated, which is good that we are able to talk about it. It's tragic for these losses, but what we have to remember is that we are all a celebrity to someone. And that was said by Sean Henfling.
Remember the celebrities in your life, even the ones who appear the strongest, and reach out to them. It's what saved my life.
We forget that every day 123 people die by suicide. Nearly 45,000 people a year die by suicide. 1 in 5 people live with a diagnosable mental health condition. And so whether you realize it or not, you do know someone who's in your life who's struggling at this moment.
My brother, he passed away about 8 months ago from his mental illness. And I want to be able to not only share my story, but his, and hopefully help others that are living with mental illness know that they can survive and thrive. When I was 5, I would go out and I would just speak to the blades of grass, like perform for them, dance for them. Whenever I was abused, for some reason, that's what I did. I don't even know who sexually abused me. I've been in so much therapy to try to picture the person's face. Close the eyes. And we're gonna set our intention, and you all know how sacred our intentions are. The title of my speech and my piece for the show is Mental Illness is My Superpower. When I was diagnosed with mental illness, I kind of went with it for a while, that I was mentally ill, that I was depressed, that this was my identity. And as I began to switch my perspective of mental illness, what I really understood was that we have a divine connection to love, to wisdom, to courage, and to strength. And when you connect to that divinity that abides in you, you become super, you become strong. I'm sort of always suicidal, and I've been that way since 4th grade. I tried to commit suicide. I jumped off a bridge. And I was actually just gonna drive to the beach and swim out into the ocean until I couldn't swim any longer. And then I got to the bridge and I was like, well, this would be a lot quicker. When my mom died, in that year, I saw my brother fall apart. On his death certificate, it said he died of an accidental overdose, but his heart was enlarged. I think he died of a broken heart. he didn't have the ability to withstand the pain that he felt. I was extremely suicidal that day. So I went outside and I picked the deadest tree, because that's how I felt in my soul and my body. And so I sat next to the tree and just as probably Oprah would say, I did the ugliest, loudest cry in the world. And now I just write down what's going on, where I'm in pain in my body, and I bury it at the foot of the tree. And my sons will also write down what their fear is and what they worry about, and we go bury it at the bottom of the tree.
Our organization was devastated last fall by the sudden loss of our co-founder, Anne-Marie Ames. She suffered a heart attack. This Is My Brave wouldn't be here today if she hadn't joined me in what at times feels like the impossible task of tackling the stigma surrounding mental illness.
So I had been writing on this blog called bipolarmomlife.com. And until that article went out, I was anonymous. And so at a party, I was introduced to this woman, and she said, "Oh my God, you're bipolar mom." And I said, "Yeah, most people call me Jen." We ended up talking the entire night. And next thing she knew, I had pulled her in as my co-founder. And within 6 months, we had produced our first show.
When I tell people about my struggles of depression, I hear "me too," or "yes, my brother, my sister, my aunt, my uncle, my son, my daughter." Anybody that you share your story with is going to understand and have a connection.
I've told my daughter's birth story and that year from the perspective of a parent who suffered the loss of a child or an advocate trying to motivate a group, but I've never incorporated the mental health aspect. It is a great tragedy to lose the life of a child. Even the shortest lives are still valuable, and the grief of those who mourn the loss of these lives should not be trivialized. The observance of International Bereaved Mother's Day may provide validation to those who have lost a baby through miscarriage, stillbirth, fatal diagnosis, SIDS, or other postnatal infant death, and I'm getting choked up because the validation is needed. I can remember it was 2:33 a.m. when she was born, and everyone in the room started sobbing. One of the nurses screamed out, "Oh my God, she's so beautiful." And I'm trying to figure out, now what in the heck did she expect? I had crocheted her a blanket, and I told them, "You need to swaddle her in this blanket," because it was supposed to be a crib blanket. It was kind of big and bulky, so it ended up taking up the majority of the coffin. Went back to work, and there were presents because they didn't tell anyone that my baby passed away. So I had all these presents to deal with. People kept coming up to me, asking me to see the baby, and she looked like a sleeping baby, so I just put a picture of her on my desk. And of course, my boss came out and said to me, "You can't keep that picture here." In addition to major depression, I ended up with anxiety and PTSD. I couldn't sleep, so they gave me sleeping pills, which I could have taken them all and I wouldn't be here today. I called my then husband to tell him that I really needed him. I really needed support. And he told me to get over it and hung up the phone, and I was feeling so low. Took the children to the bus stop, put them on the bus, kissed them goodbye, and slit my wrists. I had Anaya's life and planned out. As soon as you see that positive pregnancy test, you start planning that child's entire life even before you find out the gender. And then when you find out the gender, you start to plan even further. I have 2 daughters. I would never want them to sit in this seat to talk about what I'm talking about. I don't want to hear, "Oh mom, the baby died." The good thing is, everything that I learned, I share with them. Just as husbands grieve the loss of their spouse, parents grieve the loss of their older children who've may have lived a full life. We grieve the memories that we would have made.
My thought is we're putting a pebble in the lake, and it's going to ripple out and have more people be able to hear the stories.
Those ripples she spoke of have turned into waves.
I almost forgot my whole entire outfit too. I walked to the car and I was like, oh, I forgot my outfit.
At the sunrise, I opened up my eyes, and at the first light, there you are, staring back
the day is here.
so free, and I just wanna be where you are.
Please welcome our first brave storyteller to the stage, Casey Elliott Marr, performing Mental Illness is My Superpower.
As I stand here in front of you, I'm still in a tremendous amount of pain. But I dig as deep as I possibly can, and I say to it, you're more than welcome to stay, but you're staying on my terms, and my terms are this. You cannot and will not kill me. You can only make me stronger. You have lived in our family for far too long, and it stops here, and it stops with me.
My rebirth gave me purpose. I have a wonderfully supportive therapist. I cry like I am now. I am now a full spectrum doula who guides families through the loss of a child from conception through age 2.
Mental illness is just a label you put on someone brilliant. So here I am writing a poem about writing poems. Writing in my home on a Saturday night, not a eulogy, not a letter to a lost loved one. Nope, writing about that little word, hope.
Woke up on a summer day telling myself I'm okay, telling myself I will be fine. But when I look around, I can't see everything. It feels so hazy. There's a coat of black, it covers my life. I stand up, try to smile, but everything hurts. I'm getting lost in memories where demons lurk. They scream at me that nothing in my life will work. So when will I be free? But I simply be. I simply be.
So we were able to get everyone together and just revisit what we did on that evening, and it was emotional, and it was just great to see everyone see their experience and then talk about it.
Mental illness isn't easy. It isn't, because I have it, and it's difficult, but I still can live pretty well. I just have to watch myself, and take care of myself, and breathe, and play music, and write poetry, and do the arts, because it's important.
Just being surrounded by you guys, and you're all so powerful.
I feel like their reaction was that of pride, and knowing that what they're doing and what they're putting out there is making an impact. And I could see it on their faces, and I'm just so proud of them too, so.
You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug.
When I auditioned for This Is My Bray, I realized it's now come full circle. So that 5-year-old self will finally have her moment.
I hope that it changes people's minds about what people can do with mental health conditions. Look at people like they're people and not like they're a disorder.
I used to beg God to just take me. I'm just happy that I have this opportunity to release this amount, this portion of my story.
Storytelling is what saved my life.
Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, just wanna see you be brave. And I stay.